Hi everyone. I hope everyone can hear me okay. We're gonna get started here today. Welcome to the SRPP Award Spotlight. Today we will be hearing from 2023 SRPP Award recipients about their careers and highlighting their prestigious awards, just in time for the 2024 award called for the nominations, which is now open through March 31st. So first of all, before we started, we have a few housekeeping items to go through. Our program is being recorded today and will be archived on the GSA website. There will be a questions and the answers session at the end of the program. So please feel free to submit questions using Q&A feature at any time. So I'd like to introduce today's panel members. First, our moderator. Sorry, here we go. First of all, our moderator for today's session is Taylor Jansen, SRPP Expo Junior Leader Year 1, who is at the University of Massachusetts, Boston. Next, our 2023 SRPP Award recipients are first, Carroll Estes Rising Star Award recipient, Dr. Sara Bybee at the University of Utah. Elaine and Brody Thought Leader Award, Dr. Roberta Greene at the University of Texas. Barbara J. Berkman Award recipient, Dr. Jim Lubben at UCLA and Boston College. And last but not the least, a Maxwell Pollack Award for contributions to healthy aging, Dr. Bybee Wu at New York University. Now, Roberta was not able to be with us today, but Taylor had the opportunity to sit down with Roberta about her career, the impact of SRPP, and words of advice for emerging scholars. We will now play a quick video interview with Dr. Greene.
Okay, well, thank you for inviting me today to be part of this recording and the awards event. I'm sorry I can't see the rest of my fellow colleagues who have also gotten an award, and I'd like to congratulate them all as I begin. I know you want to have me talk about my career path. And as you were saying that, I realized that it has a similar theme to it in some ways as the special section SRPP of GSA and of GSA itself. GSA is interested in gerontology from a number of different vantage points. And those include people who are doing research, those that are active in the policy arena, and others who may be in practice with older adults, their family, and community. And so my career has kind of been on that path as well. I started out as a clinical social worker and consider myself still one. And during that time, I would be asked to speak to either Congress or to our state legislature about factors facing older adults. And that kind of pulled me into the policy arena, mostly talking about the issues that caregivers and their families and older adults faced as things got difficult, or if they got difficult in older years. After that, I began to think about it would be nice to have another generation of people ready to work in gerontology, because we still, within the professional groups, are not a major group. And so I asked the University of Maryland if they were interested in a clinical course on social work with the older adult. They already had a macro course on policy, etc. And so I moved into that portion of my career, and combined both the practice and the teaching for a long time, till I went solely into academic work for many years. And during that time, I served as a Bachelor of Social Work Department chair, as a dean, as an endowed chair. And now that I'm retired, I continue to write my textbooks and articles. Just finished up a research study on nursing home care and what might be best practices there. So you can see that I've intertwined those three areas, just like the association does with its membership and its planning for annual meetings, its journals, etc. So that has been my path through this. The way in which the association has been so instrumental in helping me with this is that it does provide a venue or an avenue for these three areas to present papers, to have dialogues with others, to serve on committees with like thinking members of your community group. And so I think it provides almost a sense of it being a glue of where all things come together and converge. If I were to speak to a young person starting out, or whatever age someone is starting as a gerontologist, I would say that it's important to have a plan in place, because as I read some of the applications for people going up for tenure or promotion, it becomes clear that some have mapped their own pathway and how they will pull all this together. And it isn't just, oh, this is interesting, oh, that is interesting, but there's a theme to it all. Maybe it would be caregiving if I had to pick one of mine, or resilience if I had to pick another theme that predominates in my work. And so this is what I would suggest as you start out. Have something that is more of your passion, what you like to study, what you like to read about, what you'd like to practice doing, advocate for. And then it will become more clear what it is. And when I did serve as dean, some of the junior faculty wondered, well, how will I get tenure? And this is my advice to people who want to be in academia. Think about what are those themes? Will something you're doing in life come naturally for you to write about? Because then writing becomes fun. And I guess that's my most important message, is whether what comes together becomes fun. Do you have a sense of purpose, and that you are doing things that matter especially at a time when there are a lot of critical events going on in the world, when we're told that more and more older adults are isolated and not connected with others. So what would be your passion? Would you be somebody who would be doing work that would try to solve that difficulty? So those would be my main messages for today. And I want to go back again to my section of SRPP because I did sit over the years with so many colleagues that I sometimes would only see their name on an article. And it was fun and exciting to meet them at the meetings, to sit down and do the work of the committee, but to hear their thoughts on what's happening in gerontology today and what needs to happen. So I think being part of the solution would be my final message for this recording. What is it that you can do to make a difference? What is it that will be fun and exciting to do? And in the end, be a solution-focused idea for where your practice or research will go. So I hope that's answered what our hosts are wanting to hear today about how we work in our professional life. And thank you for inviting me.
Well, I really like to thank Dr. Greene for sharing her wisdom, in particular with her really important message about for us to start with our passion and what we love, which will lead us to clarity and sense of purpose, and eventually help us to really solve the most pressing problems of our time that's affecting our older adults. So I really appreciate Dr. Greene for sharing her wisdom. Now, I would like to bring on the rest of our panel members. Dr. Taylor Jansen, Dr. Bybee, and Dr. James Lubben, and Dr. Sara Bybee.
Hi, everyone. My name is Taylor Jansen, and today I'll serve as our moderator. I am currently a postdoc at UMass Boston, and I'm also serving as the SRPP Junior Lead, which is how I have the pleasure of interviewing our panelists today. So, Dr. Wu, Dr. Lubben, and Bybee, my first question for you all is, in 2 minutes or less, can you give us an overview of your academic background and career up until now? Oh, I'm sorry, you're muted.
Oh, sorry. Yes, sorry. Hi, everyone. Thank you for inviting me to be on this panel. My name is Bybee. I'm the Vice Dean for Research and the Dean's Professor in Global Health at the NYU Raleigh Myers College of Nursing. I started my career actually as an aging researcher in China after I graduated from Shanghai University Sociology Department. So I became one of the youngest aging researchers in China. Then later I want to kind of pursue my graduate degree. So I came to this country actually 30 years ago and enrolled at the UMass Boston gerontology program, one of the two PhD program in gerontology in the nation at that time. So big shout out for UMass Boston gerontology program here. And so I received excellent training from UMass Boston. That how I started my career actually in this country. That I became after I graduated from actually when I was a PhD student, then I worked as a research associate, research methodologist at Wellesley College to start my kind of interest in dementia caregiving research. That's how I actually started that program of research. then start as a assistant professor, tenure track assistant professor at West Virginia University School of Medicine. Then actually, after I received tenure, I became a tenured associate professor. So later on, I joined the Duke University School of Nursing and became a full professor with tenure, and later on became an endowed chair professor in nursing. So 7 years ago, I joined the NYU College of Nursing as an endowed chair professor, now as a vice dean for research. So overall, that my career is, my entire career so far is all focused on aging. As an aging researcher, with a particular focus on aging and health in that perspective. So, yeah, that's my kind of career development in a nutshell.
Thank you. Thank you.
Are you looking for volunteers to go next? Or
Yes, thank you, Jim.
I have 10 years of practice experience before I got my doctorate. So I didn't have a GPS system that pointed me in a direction that said, this is what your career is going to be. I started off with a major from a small liberal arts college, and my major was philosophy. And what I did know that I didn't want to do was I didn't want to be drafted. It was the era of the Vietnam War. So I went into the Peace Corps because I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do. And the Peace Corps gave me a wonderful opportunity to think about things and explore different things. And that was actually a great experience. And that sort of community development model of the Peace Corps was sort of my compass for the rest of my career. A whole lot of the work I did was about developing communities, whether it be a new community of gerontological social workers or a new communities of scholars in this area or that area. But I still didn't really know what the subject matter was going to be. And so after getting out of the Army, because I was actually drafted, even though I was trying to avoid it, after I got out of the Peace Corps, I was then drafted. And I spent a couple of years in South Carolina in the military. I gained what was a phenomenal experience, equal to, in some ways, the Peace Corps experience. The Peace Corps experience kind of gave me a compass for how to go forward. A whole lot of what we do in the academy resides in bureaucracies. And I think some of the best training I ever had to survive in the academy were the 2 years I spent in the Army, because I certainly learned how you could mobilize the bureaucracy to help accomplish what you want, and how sometimes you couldn't do that. So a great understanding of bureaucratic functioning. So after my experience where I was a social worker for a while, I was a counselor for a while, I come from a rural background, actually rural poverty. And so I couldn't go straight through college, but fortunately with the GI Bill and getting a number of financial awards, I was able to cobble together my graduate training. First, I went to the University of Connecticut to get my MSW. And this was very instrumental because Virginia Little was on the faculty there. She was an economist, macroeconomist trained at Yale. And Kevin Mahoney and I were both her proteges. And so she was the mentor that specifically got us to look at aging. And she was sort of a harbinger as to what the future was going to be, that this whole field of gerontology is a growing field and so forth. Both of you, Kevin was a former priest and I was a little bit of everything. She felt could help navigate that field because it needed people who could work in a lot of different arenas to mobilize the resources necessary. And so that was helpful. It gave me a job then with the United Way of Eastern Fairfield County, the Tri-State United Way here in the New York City area, 3 years after I got my MSW. And this is where, besides, Roberta talks about having a great plan, but I think there's a whole lot of serendipity that goes into one's career as well. And I ended up at this United Way that was looking for someone to write a grant to take advantage of a care management or case management program that was being developed in Connecticut. And so I wrote the grant and got some experience on case management, both the problems and the opportunities and so forth. But I did know that I wanted to go back for a doctorate. And so after 3 years working as a social worker in a community organizing capacity, social development, I went to UC Berkeley for my doctorate. And the serendipity part there comes from the fact that they had received a huge grant to evaluate the multipurpose senior services care management program in California, statewide initiative. And the fact that I'd had some of this experience in Connecticut made me an easy recruit to their research team, because I brought in some savvy of how to negotiate working with state departments of health and welfare departments and so forth. And so I was recruited to the UC Berkeley research team, which dealt with case management of older populations. So that's sort of how my career got started in aging. I designed the health and psychosocial assessment forms for that large statewide program, the forms that were used by the nurses and the forms that were used by the social workers. And then I did the psychometric analysis of all the different scales that were included in those measures. And we brought in a consultant from USC to help us with that analysis. And he told me, he says, you're calling all of these California MSSP IADL scales, ADL scales, MSQ scales, and so forth. We want to name one after you. And I didn't know that's how it was going to happen, but he said, what would be the topic area that is most interesting to you? And I said, I'm very concerned about social network, social support, social isolation. He says, that's it. And so it was actually in my doctoral dissertation that the Lubben social network scale sort of first appears. And that's because we got the inquiry from the Human Population Lab there at Berkeley. One of my mentors, one of my teachers at UC Berkeley was Leonard Syme of the Berkman Syme Index. And when I tried to implement the Berkman Syme in this big statewide program, it didn't perform very well, in part because the Berkman Syme scale was developed on a younger population. My population were all Medicaid, elderly recipients. And so there are some items in the Berkman Syme that just don't have any variation if you're dealing with a very frail elderly. But what I did find that had a great deal of variation were the items that dealt with family and friends. And so I disaggregated those items and created the Lubben social network scale. And that has proved to be one of my key research areas and one of the things that I'm especially proud of. So I got my faculty appointment at UCLA, so I just moved down the coast, spent 20 years there at UCLA, all the way from assistant professor on up to full professor. One of the great noteworthy things, I am the recipient of the Berkman Award. Well, Barbara Berkman actually wrote one of my letters for tenure. So I've known Barbara for a long time. That's one of the reasons I'm especially proud of receiving this award. And she actually had a chance to look at my work and obviously critique it for my tenure letter. And I got tenure there at UCLA. One of the beauties of being at UCLA was, just like the Gerontological Society, it had a lot of different active departments, like in medicine, nursing, and public health, and so forth, that were addressing the aging of the population. So it was a fertile ground for research in aging. After 20 years there, I had the opportunity to be recruited to Boston College. Now, that was both for personal reasons as well as professional reasons. I was recruited to fill an endowed chair, and there are certain advantages for the endowed chair. But the other reason was that my wife was from the Boston area, and she had elder care responsibilities. And so this is post 9/11, And living in Los Angeles and her trying to care for elderly relatives in Boston wasn't too convenient. But if we could get repositioned in Boston, it certainly simplified our life. And that partially accounts for my movement there. I should also add that one of the things that happened, one of the reasons I was attracted to going to Boston is that working together with Barbara Berkman, we got a huge amount of money from the Johnny Hartford Foundation. I think altogether they put in something like $70 million to help bring gerontology to social work. When I started, social work really was preoccupied with mental health and child welfare issues. And those of us who were gerontological social workers really didn't have a home within the usual social work professional organizations. And so SRPP in particular, but GSA more generally, was the home for most of the social workers who went into aging. And so that's where Barbara and I were able to anchor our respective grants. My grant focused on helping doctoral students do their dissertations in aging. And then hers was sort of like an early career award for junior faculty. And so she worked with the Hartford Faculty Scholars Programs, whereas I ran the Hartford Doctoral Fellows Program. In the Hartford Doctoral Fellows Program, we funded 104 doctoral dissertations throughout the United States. And these were grants of about $70,000 each to help the students finish off their dissertations. Many of those people now have moved on. They're tenured professors. Some are department chairs, and some are even in higher academic administration. So it's been a wonderful career, and it's a wonderful journey. And I think it's good to have a roadmap and some idea where you're going. But I would also encourage the younger scholars to enjoy the serendipity and to carpe diem the unique opportunities that may come your way, because you really don't know what the future is going to hold, and you want to be trained to take advantage of it. And sometimes that means being a little loose in terms of what you aspire to, so that you have the flexibility to in fact take advantage of those opportunities. So that probably summarizes it well enough.
Thank you so much, Dr. Lubben. Sara, would you like to answer this last question?
Yeah, thank you. It's really interesting to hear both of your backgrounds and identify some overlaps. So I graduated from Tufts with dual degrees in community health and Spanish, and worked as a bilingual early Head Start visitor for a few years, both in Boston and then in Portland, and came to realize that the help that I wanted to provide families was help that I couldn't really deliver unless I got more education. So I went back to get my master's, got my master's in social work at Portland State University. And that's where the idea of like gerontology as well as leadership and policy was really, I don't want to say implanted in my brain, but that's kind of like where the idea started for me. It was this big push to have more folks interested in gerontology and also more folks interested in leadership positions, with the idea that many of us within a few years would probably be in leadership positions or mentorship positions. As a social worker, I worked in child abuse and neglect first for a few years. And then after I earned my LCSW, I went into oncology social work at a NCI designated cancer center. Again, I kind of hit a point where I realized I needed more education in order to do kind of the research I wanted to do and make the impact I wanted to make on a larger scale. So I went to get my doctorate in nursing at the College of Nursing at the University of Utah, which is a bit odd since I'm not a nurse, but it was an interdisciplinary program. And I really liked that idea of like team science and using multiple different perspectives to kind of solve health problems and improve the health of communities and populations. I earned a PhD there, and then I got the opportunity to pursue a postdoc through the Utah Clinical and Translational Science Institute. And then as of this past July, I joined the faculty at the University of Utah as a research assistant professor. And I'm going to leave it at that so we can hear from everyone else on the next questions.
Thank you so much, Sara. So the next question I have for you all today is, what role has SRPP played in your careers?
For this, as trained as a social gerontologist, my program research really interested kind of bring social and the behavior perspectives kind of into aging research. So having this kind of be a part of this SRPP kind of a member of the SRPP section, that it helped me to think through how my research can impact policy and the practice. So it's not just for the kind of academic exercise, it's really think about how we can make a difference. We can make a kind of policy and the practice kind of change. So being a member of this session, that also got me kind of have the chance to network and to know a lot of like-minded researchers in the field, as well as actually met many students, many kind of my mentees through that venue. So that's actually is a very good way to kind of have a significant impact on my career and the career development.
Thank you. Thank you.
As I alluded to earlier, at the time I was going through with different early stages of my career, social work really was not a hospitable home for gerontological social work. And so my mentor at the University of Connecticut, Virginia Little, was very active in GSA. She was one of the early builders of GSA, and she was actually head of the SRPP section. So I really didn't, I shouldn't take much credit for choosing SRPP. She clearly prescribed it, got me involved and got me connected. And so I could see the real merits thereof. Also, I guess I would add that one of the things that I felt was very instrumental in my career was that I would purposely avoid giving papers at GSA. I preferred giving posters. And the reason for that was I want to get to know the other scholars doing the work that I'm doing. And oftentimes when you're giving a paper, there's that barrier. You really can't talk to the people in the audience who may be interested in your work. But I found that the poster sessions were especially valuable to allow me to find out who is doing this work. I could then go back and look up their work and so forth to help my career. So I look at professional meetings like GSA as really meetings of communication to find out what's going on, what other people are doing in a timely way so that it could be instrumental in maybe guiding where your work's going to go. And GSA was wonderful in that regard. I have a master's in public health as well. And so sometimes I go to the public health meetings, but APHA is humongous and has all different kinds of special sections. I just found that GSA and the SRPP was a more comfortable home for my career. And that's why I highly recommend it to all the students that I'm mentoring.
I think I'd like to echo, again, Dr. Lubben's comments about SRPP really feeling like a good fit for like a home. I've been to other conferences and been parts of other professional organizations that are smaller or larger, and yet this still feels like the best fit for me. I think earning a doctorate in a college of nursing, being a social worker kind of put me in a different place than many folks. And then, still currently being in a college of nursing, I feel the same way sometimes, but in SRPP, I really feel connected with a lot of other people doing similar work, not just in like nursing or medicine. And I think that's been really valuable. I'll also say like joining as a student has been super helpful because I get to meet like professional rock stars. So like at the SRPP luncheons, I sat next to like Kathy Berkman and I was just kind of in awe of her the whole time. And she shared her lunch with me because I couldn't afford like the lunch ticket the first time I went. And just kind of having that informal connection with people who you've like read their work for years and years and you really look up to was really inspiring. And I kind of used my student card for a while to be like, hey, I'm interested in XYZ. Do you want to sit down and talk to me about that? And that was really helpful.
Awesome. That's great to hear. My next question is, what advice or suggestions do you have for other members as they aspire to become an award recipient, either through SRPP or GSA as a whole?
Well, I think actually just think about this question is that first of all, how you actually in terms of career development, that you need to kind of keep up the good work, right? Trying to stay on top of the kind of trying to think about what are the kind of innovative research projects that you can engage, and stay focused on what you do, that you're trying to produce the best research products that you have, and also for kind of dissemination, your study findings. That's what that, and more importantly is again to think about how your research project can kind of impact the field, that how you can actually your research findings can make a difference in individuals' life. So GSA as a professional organization that can fully recognize your contribution to that. So when you say that, how you think that to make a case that you kind of is a candidate that could consider these kind of awards, that I think that the overall fundamentally, for example, here that last year I received, I was very fortunate and honored to receive this Maxwell and Pollack award. So in that sense, it's really just trying to think about to build upon that several decades of work in the field, and particularly focus on healthy aging, focus on kind of long-term care, focus on dementia caregiving research, that have to build upon your kind of very strong program research to have an impact on policy, impact on practice, but also more importantly is at our stage of life as already full professor with tenure for many years, is how you can make impact in the field, how you actually mentor next generation of scientists that can study on aging. So how you that means that you need to fully committed to the work. It's not only your own work, it is your mentees' work. It is actually your students' work. How to develop help your students and mentee to develop their own program of research. So that's what this is, and that your work can be in this sense that that will be recognized by the field, because that truly depends on how you make a difference in that sense.
I guess I would add that none of us probably started our careers thinking we're going to go and get this award. It was sort of given to us afterwards, and not something that we necessarily aspire to, but something that we're very grateful for having been acknowledged, for having done the work that fits to the description. So I would encourage everyone to go out and do the best possible work they could and stay active. Come to GSA on a regular basis, because it's not as if we were self-nominated. It were our colleagues basically identified our work and sort of thought, well, you know, you've done a lot of work, and they started to get together the package, if you will, to nominate us for this award. I'm very grateful for those who, in fact, put together the package. It was a lot of work, and I commend them for that. But it gets back to the original purpose, I think, of going to GSA, which is to communicate what you're doing and to find out what other people are doing so that you can even do your work better. So it's that constant exchange of ideas and communication back and forth, seizing new opportunities as you go to GSA and you hear about some new initiatives. At the same time, realizing when maybe some areas are getting stale and maybe you have to move on to some new topics or so forth. But I think a great deal of it had to do with building a good social network of colleagues who are supportive and nurturing of one's own work and their career.
I have a little bit of a different perspective, I think, because I don't have a whole career of success behind me. When I saw the call for the Carroll L. Estes Award, I asked my mentors if they thought I might be a good fit, and I did. I was the one who kind of self-nominated, in fact, and that was in 2022. I was not chosen that year. And then in between cycles of nominations, I, reread the description of the award, and I decided to try to extend myself in some additional areas to make more of an impact in terms of policy. I got more connected with my local politics. I started writing more opinion pieces in the Salt Lake Tribune here. I took on additional leadership roles within GSA, and reapplied again. It was like a self-nomination, even though my mentors wrote the letter. I asked again, do you think this is something I should reapply for? Reapplied and was shocked, to be honest, shocked that I was chosen. And I think the reason I mention this is that a lot of times I think opportunities are only there if you really take them. And I would encourage anyone to apply for anything and everything you're interested in. And you'll get a lot of rejections, but that's how you learn to grow. And a lot of times I found recently when I'm applying for things, even if it's like a professional development workshop, just by writing the statement and trying to explain why this is a good fit for me, I gain clarity in my own purpose and my own trajectory. And that's been really helpful. So just, don't be afraid to put yourself out there and have perseverance and reapply if you feel like it's a good fit. Try to ensure that you're meeting the description and kind of embodying the values that are described in the particular award.
Thank you so much. Those were great responses, especially from a whole different trajectory of careers and different cohorts. So thank you again. We have a few minutes before our Q&A starts, so I just want to give a gentle reminder to the attendees that if they have questions, they can submit it in the Q&A function or the chat. But my last question before we get into that is, what are you all most excited about in gerontology right now? And just to be a little mindful of time so we can get to audience questions as well.
Yeah, that I think that excites me into really kind of two areas of research. Having been in this field for many years, I think right now these kind of two fields are particularly kind of exciting to think about first of all, how we can actually develop this kind of person-centered long-term care, that to how we can conduct research to improve person-centered care for persons with disability, with dementia, with cognitive impairment, and with physical kind of impairment. So this is one part. And also with the technology, how we can actually to incorporate technology in the delivery of care, as well as actually think about the second part is when think about quality of care for a person, long-term care, as well as another piece is healthy aging. How we promote healthy aging, how we actually use this kind of technology to promote healthy aging. That's why you see so many more kind of behavior interventions that using technology in the field to promote kind of healthy living, to promote in my sense is that my project more particularly related to dementia care as well as kind of improving oral health for older adults. How to use kind of smart technology to improve oral health for persons with dementia and with some cognitive impairment. So that's kind of that excites me. Think about long-term care research, person-centered care research, as well as healthy aging, integrate kind of technology in the field.
The area that I'm particularly excited about now is social isolation and loneliness as a research agenda. The COVID was dastardly for our whole society, but it does have a silver lining. And that is that I spent many years of my career trying to raise awareness that social isolation was a behavioral health risk. And it didn't get taken that seriously until COVID came along. And suddenly now everybody gets it. So the whole world now knows that isolation by forced isolation is not desirable, and it's deleterious to one's health. So we have an existential moment, if you will, where the world is aware that this is an important health topic, but we now have to seize that moment and to start doing something about it. We've developed over the years strong social epidemiological evidence that isolation, loneliness are negative to health. We now need to identify the populations, the different causes of isolation, and to tailor interventions that work so that we can move this field forward. And I think that's where we're moving. And 2 points in that. One is, along with Harry Taylor and Roger O'Sullivan, I'm one of the co-chairs for the Special Interest Group on Isolation and Loneliness for GSA. And if you're interested in that topic, I encourage you to join that special interest group. And then I'm also working on a special issue of a journal for articles on that topic. So I think we're going to likely in the next 5 years make some big progress on identifying, if you will, the different etiologies of isolation and loneliness, and to tailoring some good interventions that work. But we need to know what are those interventions and for whom do they work. And I think that's sort of an exciting arena of research that I'm looking forward to. Reading all of your work and the members of SRPP as they make contributions to that topic.
So I was worried we'd all have the same answer, but it looks like we're all going to have different answers, which is really exciting. So I think the thing that I'm really pleased about is the idea that people are starting to understand that the accumulation of stress or disparities over the life course can have devastating effects in later life. So I think this is another thing that COVID really highlighted. But for example, like Hispanic and Latino individuals are 1.5 times more likely to develop dementia. And when you look at kind of the precursors to that, a lot of studies point to minority-related stress, including socioeconomic disadvantage and lack of access to resources, lack of access to insurance. And I think if you really look at a lot of early causes of mortality and other life-limiting diseases, you can see this kind of pattern of accumulation of stress. So that there's this need to really not only look at where someone is in the present, but also historically, what kinds of things have they experienced and how might have those kind of built upon one another.
That's great. Thank you, guys. I just noticed there's a great question in the chat by Dr. Shippey. And she says, thank you for these wonderful presentations from all of our panelists. I'm wondering if you all have advice for those of us who are mentors on how to best support junior scholars in gerontology and how we can better leverage GSA resources in doing so.
Yeah, I remember, thank you, Tatiana, for this wonderful question. So I remember quite a few years ago that I was the chair of the mentoring committee at GSA, and we helped the GSA establish this mentor-mentee kind of program. So GSA having like thousands of members and have so many wonderful scientists that actually can serve as really a great resources for junior early stage investigators and the graduate students. So as mentors, that we could just think about to introduce our network of GSA members to our mentees. So that is certainly that one way that we can do, because for example, not only in terms of in the meetings in GSA annual meetings, we can introduce kind of them to meet with each other, but also like in kind of daily kind of life, we can introduce by emails, kind of link these potential mentors with our own mentees together. So that's actually can help. In this case, not only you as a mentor, that you expand your kind of mentoring, become a mentoring team to work with your mentees. Yeah.
I guess the important thing is GSA needs to provide a platform that allows for communication between the different generations. That is to say, junior faculty, mid-career faculty, senior faculty, and retirees, so that we can talk with each other and explore how we can best help each other, as opposed to segregating the audiences. So like you have ESPO, but how do you need to bring in some senior faculty to meet with ESPO, but ESPO needs to also communicate what their interests are to the senior faculty and so forth. So it's going to take some creative planning for conferences to facilitate the different avenues of communication. And one of the things that I did when I was the vice chair or vice president of the Society for Social Work and Research is I developed electronic posters as opposed to these crazy hard posters that people have to carry through airports and get crunched in the overhead luggage and so forth and so on, so that they could do them on a USB thumb drive and plug in their poster just like people plug in their USB thumb drive for a talk. And I think that allows for then these kind of parts of a conference to elevate the posters to being good venues for people to feel like they're as good of it and as prestigious of a presentation as are the usual symposia and whatever. I would actually opt for fewer symposia and make sure that they're of higher quality, and then more opportunities for more personalized getting together. Now, this has an additional benefit, and that is that early in my career, a lot of my research dealt with Asian American elderly population. And so at GSA, what I found was that my papers would invariably be presented at off hours or maybe at the very end of the conference. Whereas when we were able to move them to a poster setting, then I could actually meet people who were doing that work when they were still at the conference, as opposed to someone saying, oh, I saw you gave this paper, and they then send me an email and we have to resort to other less favorable forms of communication. So communication techniques and strategies are what I think GSA has got to explore, and how to take advantage of the new technologies to facilitate that.
I think it does a lot to have a mentor say, hey, it sounds like you're interested in aging. This is an organization I'm a part of. Why don't you think about an abstract you can write, or we have this data, would you like to do anything with it for this upcoming annual scientific meeting? So I was first introduced to GSA through my faculty mentor at the time, and to SRPP through her. And I think another thing that would be really great that she's done for me is to forge connections between other researchers and myself. So if I said, oh, I'm really interested in so-and-so's work, I heard that presentation yesterday, did you go to that? And she knew someone who worked with them or knew them, she would go ahead and like introduce me right away. And so the ability to kind of forge connections and also present opportunities that maybe I hadn't thought of before, and just keep me up to date, constantly sending me ideas for, here's something you might be interested, here's another thing. So I think like connection, and then more like keeping up with educational opportunities and just sending them to a mentee's way is really helpful.
That is great. Thank you guys so much. We're just about at the last minute or so. So I just want to ask you guys, do you have any closing things that you would like to say before we jump off here?
I want to say that GSA has been my prime professional organization since 1996. So this is an absolutely wonderful professional organization. And I also, for the past several decades, certainly see the membership growth significantly. So there's a huge resources that for us is not, and for all of us with different stages of our kind of career development. So I would encourage that all the audience that be heavily kind of more actively engaged in GSA activities, because there's so much that the organization can offer. So that I'm grateful for GSA's support in my career development.
Thank you so much, Dr. Wu.
I guess I would like to thank everyone who's been such a good friend during my career and my membership in GSA, because I really look at GSA as being a big family reunion. And even after COVID, it was great to get back and see people in person and see how they're doing. And that's, I think, a wonderful service that GSA in general does, but SRPP in particularly does. And so there are a lot of people I could thank. In fact, Elaine Brody was one of the awards named after her, and then Carroll Estes. I was early enough in the career that I crossed paths with her quite a bit. And of course, I'm indebted to Barbara Berkman for so much of helping me, mentoring me in my career in different stages. So, you know, even though we may be senior, we too have been mentored and are eternally grateful for that and would like to give back then to others. So a part of the Peace Corps model that I alluded to earlier is building communities. And that's sort of what I'm alluding to, that GSA has the capacity, the function of creating the community of scholars and practitioners who can address the issues of our time and also of the future. And so I look forward to continued involvement in GSA.
Thank you so much, Dr. Lubben.
Along the same lines in terms of giving back to the community, I was going to say the only thing that I wanted to add was if anyone wants to chat or would like advice or wants to talk more about this process of applying for awards or becoming a co-convener of a special interest group or joining a section, I'm happy to talk to anyone at any time. I think my email, if it's not provided, I'll put it in the chat right now, and anyone can contact me whenever, and I'm happy to connect.
Thank you so much, Sarah. And John, I'll just pass it on to you for the closing remarks. Thanks, everyone.
Well, as we draw close to the end of this enlightening session, I would like to thank all of our panel members for sharing their wisdom, insights, and guidance with us today. What you share with us today help us illuminate our direction for continuing innovative research, impactful research, advocacy, and policy that makes a difference in the lives of older adults and their communities. And also, I would like to thank Dr. Jansen for doing an amazing job of facilitating the panel today. Before we conclude, I would like to take a moment to remind everyone of a few important incoming events and deadlines. March 14th is the abstract submission deadline for our annual meeting. March 31st is awards nomination deadline, and April 8th is SRPP officer election nomination deadline. And this is it for today's session, and thank you everyone for attending today, and we look forward to seeing you at our future events.
Thank you.
Thank you.